Habits of eating and drinking are invested with significance by the particular culture or subculture to which they belong. As Atkinson has remarked, a mouthful of wine will convey very different meanings to the professional wine taster, the bon vivant, the Christian celebrating Holy Communion, and the alcoholic down and out. Food is an especially appropriate mediator because when we eat, we establish, in a literal sense, a direct identity between ourselves and culture and our food and nature. Food, then, has both a material and a symbolic significance.
Hi, my name is Sophie, and I grew up overseas. I spent the first 8 years of my life in Warsaw, Poland, the second 2 in Lima, Peru, and the most recent one, I spent 8 years in Doha, Qatar, in the Middle East. I was living overseas because of my parents' job. They're international teachers, so they teach at American schools around the world. And it led me to have a really unique opportunity to be from America, but living in different countries across the world.
Hi, I'm Arnavi. I'm from India, and my major is international business. Still a freshman. I miss my country.
Food functions as a way to give structure to daily life. The eating community and the meal are a basic component of all societies.
What are some staple foods in Poland?
Staple foods in Poland, like traditional, like you'll hear about, are kielbasa, which is like a sausage. It's like almost like a brat. And then famous are pierogies, which is like they're like stuffed pastries, but they're sometimes savory, sometimes sweet, and they have like either meat or fruit in them. Like the fruit ones are the dessert ones, and the meat ones are like the more traditional ones. And they're usually like boiled, and they're super yummy.
What are some staple foods in Peru?
I think the most famous Peruvian dish is probably called ají de gallina, which is a chicken type of dish. I would relate it kind of to casserole. Like rice is really popular in Peru, and like potatoes like came from the Incan Empire, which was like ancient Peru. So potatoes, rice, corn, that's all very staple. But like,
what are some staple foods in Qatar?
So the most famous Middle Eastern food is called a shawarma, and it's like so you take a big skewer of meat, like a big meat on a stick that rotates like rotisserie, and then they like shave the meat off, and then they put it in like it's like a wrap type of thing with like a special sauce. And there's other things in it. People put pickles, sometimes there's french fries in it, and then you eat it like a wrap, and that's super traditional.
Can you tell us what are some staple foods in India?
We have wheat, we have rice, millet, maize, and moong, especially. It differs according to the states and the weather conditions in different parts of the country.
What sort of stereotypes about food from your country do you think people in the United States hold?
It's spicy. So I have a friend, he started saying, in US you just have 3 spices, ketchup, pepper, and salt. And I'm like, no, we have categories in some spices, all of them. So we usually, a basic Indian meal consists of turmeric, cinnamon, cloves, cardamom, everything, chili, pepper, what else? Salt. Yeah, if you are eating a basic meal and if it does not have all these things, that's not an Indian meal.
I think for like Peru, you'd think South America, and then you would just think like Mexican food, like enchiladas or tacos or whatever, but each country from South America has its own unique set of dishes, and so like I think if you were from the US and you'd never been there, you'd just think like they probably have burritos or tacos, and they like I'm sure they do, like they can make it Mexican food, but that's Mexican food, it's not Peruvian food.
How does the food from these countries compare to foods in America or to other countries?
That's a great question. I think foods I think European foods like from Poland are quite similar, like you wouldn't be super thrown by it. There's just like a lot less grease used, and in these overseas, like sugar is used way less than it is in the United States. Like if you think of like a stereotypical, like I think of the United States, like they have a very obsession with soda and like pop. Like when you get a cup at a McDonald's here, it's like huge, and like a medium here is a large in Europe or really anywhere else in the world. So like that is what I think of as like a staple difference. But like when I was living overseas, they had restaurants that we have here. Like I had McDonald's, Chili's, like those are mostly in all the other countries. Sometimes they serve different things, which would be fun. But like the portions in the United States are just way bigger when it comes to pop, when it comes to like your plates. And like the food just generally is less fatty, less greasy. They have fatty and greasy foods, but it's just less of it.
So you guys have more of baked stuff like buns for burger, bread, and what, and like breads, of course. So our bread is chapati or naan, if many people know that right now, but it's naan. Like it's baked, but it's cooked. And here breads are just baked in oven and taken out. Back home, eating habits are different too. So it might vary. It does vary, of course. It was a great change for me coming here and switching food, a lot of it. And to other countries, uh, Asians have a same pattern of food, I should say, but not the Japanese, Chinese, and Korean people. They have more of noodles stuff. We don't. We don't have much of it. Uh, we sit we sit on the floor while eating. People here sit on dining table, but back home also now people started sitting on dining tables. That's it. We eat by hand. Everyone eats by fork and knife here. So yeah.
Food can also have a wealth or status influence where some cultural groups may have little or no access to certain foods.
What influences the type of food in these countries?
So history, right? Like Peru has such a rich history with the Incas there, and so like agriculture was like a huge thing to that empire, which was ancient. I mean, this is the 1400s, and so like potatoes, corn, like these very staple crops that have been there for years and years. You know, the potato came from Peru. People think potato Ireland, but no, like it originated in Peru, and so that the history largely influences it. Same with the food in Qatar. So Qatar's a desert, so there's not like there are some crops. Like the main crops are dates, and like it's like a fig, and like those are eaten for dessert or whatever. But there's fresh vegetables aren't often incorporated into the food. That's why it's like very meat, cheese, and bread heavy because like that's what they had on hand. So like the part of an animal could be used in almost all of the dish. You use the meat, the milk is usually used like this thing called labna, which is like a cheese type of deal that's kind of like yogurt and kind of like sour cream. Like I don't know how to describe it. So like they would use, since it was a desert, they would use like animals with every part of it and try to make a complete dish using all of that. So the agriculture, like the land that is there heavily influences the meals that are most traditional.
Religion, I said before. Okay, so cow is considered holy animal here, like really sacred animal in India. So people who are Hindus don't eat beef. No one eats beef. Like it's considered bad. So people don't eat beef at all. So religion is one factor that affects and influences the food. And according like India is agriculture based country, so people used to work really hard in the fields before. So their like balanced diet consisted of like chapati, vegetable, rice, pulses, like full protein, carbohydrates, everything kind of diet. So that is like continuing since generation and carried on till now.
Not only biological or geographical conditions determine the food eaten within a certain community, but also cultural norms or ideas of what is edible may change between nations or between different classes in society.
What are some traditional foods or meals?
In my state, traditional food would be dal bafle. It's pulses and flour baked usually with lots of spices.